Yeah,
Here
here
we
we go.
are.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. So sorry about the delay. Had a total technical weirdness moment, and it took me literally over 25 minutes to get on this Google Hangout. I am so sorry. And I hope you guys are still out there. I hope you guys are joining us. Um, wow, how does it get any better than this? Hey, so tonight this is a Google Hangout about basically animals and everything, but I have some other people here with me, so let's introduce each other first. So welcome Tammy from Canada.
Hello. We have a pod here of wonderful people. Say hello.
Hi! Great. And then we have some more people here. S Sarah and Tamara, how you doing?
Hi. We were just looking for Alex Vogel. We're seeing if she can log in. Or maybe she's in the class.
Okay, cool. All
Yeah.
right, so we have another person logging in. Awesome. So, wow, it's always a little bit funny to start something late and be a little discombobulated because now I'm like, where to start? Where to start? Um, I think let me just basically start a little bit with what actually inspired this whole Google Hangout. And the inspiration for this Google Hangout is basically a class that I'm going to facilitate in Arizona in Phoenix in a few weeks. And it's about a 2-day class of learning and looking at the different possibilities of animal communication. And what this is for me personally is sort of very different from the classes that I have taken personally to learn more about animal communication. And the reason being is that I am using the Access Consciousness tools to introduce you to a different way of being with animals than what you would maybe learn in an animal communication class. The thing that is also a little bit different, and I'm smiling because I've have facilitated quite a few people that have actually told me later that what they really enjoyed about my class was that they didn't learn anything that they couldn't use. And the reason for that was because I actually show you how you already are communicating with animals. So my job is really easy because I'm not teaching you anything new. So this is really something that for me personally also has been a bit of an interesting journey that I have taken because when I did my first animal communication class, I felt totally inadequate because I couldn't do what I was being asked to do in the class. And yet I got a lot of information, but I thought it was wrong because I didn't get it the way that I was told I should be getting it. And so everywhere that you have been told what animal communication is, and because you weren't getting it exactly the same way that you were told, and then disregarded everything that you have been receiving from animals, will you not please destroy and uncreate all of that?
Yeah.
Thank you. Right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all 9 shorts, boys and beyonds. So what did I just say? I just used the clearing statement from Access Consciousness. And Access Consciousness are the tools that I stumbled across probably about 11 or 12 years ago now, and that have given me more freedom than anything that I have tried up until that point. And what this clearing statement does is it's actually taking you back in time to wherever you created a limitation, whether it was a year ago, a day ago, or a billion years ago, is completely irrelevant. And you also don't even have to know exactly what this limitation is. Just know that when there is a limitation, it usually feels heavy. And so with the clearing statement, we can just erase it, and then the limitation is gone. So it makes it really easy to change something that maybe up until this point was not really changeable. And the interesting part about that is that animals actually can have a limitation too, because they can also make decisions that can really stop them from moving forward. And you may have all experienced that one time or another with your dogs, with your cats, with your horses, or with any animals that you've been having in your lives. When you have an animal that you have rescued from a shelter, for example, there's so many things that often these animals come with, and then we don't often help them to get over them by going into the future with them, but we lock them into the past by keep telling their story about how bad it was for them in the shelter, or how abused they maybe were before they even got to the shelter, etc., etc. So an animal can really easily hold on to something like that as well, and then function from that point of view from that day forward. So we can change that too by using these amazing tools and these questions and then these clearing statements to kind of just wipe all that out and change it. So it's been an amazing, fun journey for me, this whole journey. And again, for me to actually show you how to use these tools and then to really empower you to know what you already know has been so much fun. And now you might think, well, why should I even come to the class? I don't know. Maybe you don't have to come to the class at all. But but you know, we often are so stuck in our decisions that it's sometimes hard to really get out of them until you really start to look at the stuff and just go, okay, this is no longer working for me, this is no longer working for me, let's just change it. So that's really what I'm there to do. I'm facilitating you to have greater awareness, to have more fun, and to have more ease with your animals. So if that sounds like fun, then that might be a class you may want to explore. And I don't want to harp on about the class because I also want to give you a taste of maybe what we are doing in the class, and give you some taste of some clearings that we can do. So so anyway, like any kind of questions, like I know, Tammy, you guys you have a pod there. Any questions you might have or anything that might be of interest, like ask me a question and I'll ramble on about whatever it might be that you guys are talking about.
Anybody have a question? Not at this moment. We're all
Not at
playing
this moment.
high, apparently.
Can we say hi to Alex? Alex made the call now.
Hi, Alex. Oh, you don't have sound, Alex. It sounds like you're muted. Oh, we can't hear you. You may have to play with that. Can't yet hear you. Well, so where do we start here? Well, one of the things that I really noticed with animals is that they are quite willing to actually live in present time and move forward. So even though they may have limitations by what they have chosen in the past, they're also very willing to change that and move forward into the future with you. And it's often us that are sort of holding on to the past, not really because we want to, but because we're trying to explain something, or we're trying to make our lives better, but not really having the tools to really change it for good, or whatever it is. We're not really doing it deliberately, but often with our point of view, we're holding the animal hostage in their point of view. So, for example, with what I said earlier, so often I meet people that have gotten their dog out of a shelter or out of an abusive relationship or out of some situation that wasn't really great for the animal. And so then often people will tell that story and explain why their animal is behaving a certain way. You know, my dog is doing this because, you know, when he was younger, these people would hit him every time he would do something like that. And so with that point of view, we're not allowing the dog to actually let go of his past. And so what is actually required for the dog to let go of the past is also for us to be willing to move forward and no longer be held hostage by that story either. And how do we do that? Well, first of all, just literally by saying, okay, so everything I have decided about my dog's history, I will now destroy and uncreate times a godzillion. right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. And there's that funny clearing statement again. And if you want to know more about that particular clearing statement, which I can explain here too, but it's also very well explained at the website called theclearingstatement.com, and you can go there and check it out. It's part of Access Consciousness and the tools that Gary Douglas and Dr. Dane here have been creating over the last 20-some years. So really quite amazing stuff, really all based on asking questions and then using this clearing statement to kind of get rid of any decision that we have made about whatever, really, anything in our lives. So to keep going with this example, so now, okay, if you are willing to actually let go of your dog's history, which has the word story in it, so it's a lot of story that we're holding on to. So what if we let go of the story? What if you no longer had a story about your dog? What if your story was recreated every day with your dog in the moment that you're in? What if you really could function more from being the question with your dog rather than functioning from a problem that you have been having with your dog for all along? So for example, if you have a dog that is dog reactive and you're walking on the street, you see another dog coming, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're already expecting, yeah, go ahead, right? Freeze.
Freezing, yeah.
You're already expecting what your dog will do. Now this is sort of a bit of a catch-22, and why is that? Because guess what? Your dog is actually psychic. So what is your dog picking up? The moment you're freezing, your dog goes, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? What am I missing? You know? Oh, there's a dog there. Arr! You know, so your dog is already picking up on your point of view about what should happen, and so then the dog looks at the other dog and goes, oh, my person wants me to react a certain way. So it's very funny because now you both have been practicing a behavior, maybe for years already, and getting out of it really requires you to be quite diligent and really to start changing your point of view about the situation. So this is not done by saying, oh, my dog is fine, and my dog is good, and my dog is friendly, because then you're lying to yourself, because so far your dog hasn't been good and hasn't been friendly.
Pretending doesn't work, Suzy? Is this what you're telling us?
I would say probably not, because if pretending was working, some of you would have probably gotten over this already. But what if you could actually change your point of view about it? What if you actually saw the situation and said, okay, so everything that I am perceiving right now about this, everything that I am reacting to already, I will now destroy and uncreate it. Times a godzillion. Right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. Okay, now I look at this dog again. Okay, cool. Now my dog may be starting to have a little bit of a hair raise about that dog. Okay, cool. So what do I do now with this situation? All right, let's shift the energy a little bit. Maybe let's turn 45 degrees to one direction. Let's say I'm turning 45 degrees to my right. Take my dog with me. Okay, did that change something? Oh, my dog all of a sudden was confused because we're doing something we've never done before. And now my dog is actually looking at me and no longer at the other dog. Oh, cool. All right. Hey, doggy, let's walk a little bit this way. Let's walk 45-degree angle over here. Okay, cool. We're not avoiding the other dog. Hi, other dog. So what if you really were willing to just change your attitude about the situation, inviting the energy of that other dog into your space, into the space of your dog and yourself, but keeping your dog from reacting. And that's really one important part, because once your dog starts getting into the reaction, then you most likely are going to go down the road of reacting and back and forth, and you guys are going to go and build up that energy that we're now trying to change. So you can also help your dog by literally pock and potting. That's what we call this. By saying the clearing statement, we use this funny pock and pot in there, which Dane here calls the superheroes of consciousness. Pock and pot! You know, so you can use that. You can use the pock and pot basically by saying, okay, dog, everything that creates that in your body, in your being, will you destroy and uncreate it now? times a godzillion, right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. So anything you can do physically to get your dog to be with you rather than focusing on that other dog is great. So if you have to walk in little loops and meander around, for example, to distract your dog from the other dog a little bit, do that. What I really would like for you to get out of having your dog react to the situation, but also not avoiding the situation. One thing that I always find very fascinating is that once you start going around and following that other dog, things are usually way easier. And that's always the thing, that we often try to avoid all these spaces where these dogs actually meet. But if you have a very dog reactive dog, if you actually start to follow that dog around on the road, like with a big distance at first and then coming closer and closer, your dog will have a much easier time with that than if you're trying to head on towards another dog. So now, even with all that, again, there will always be this energy that comes up for you. Just like right now, there came this energy, like some of you probably have a situation like that and you're going, it's not gonna work, it's never gonna work, so the energy that just came up for you, will you please destroy and uncreate all that?
Yes.
Thank you, times a godzillion. Right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. So the energy of that is what is creating you to stay in that point of view. And so this is where I said earlier, the chicken and the egg. Would you be willing to actually lose your story and really start to function from a different space and give yourself also the space of not running into the situation where you then feel like you're overwhelmed, but really staying sort of in the space in a way that you can handle it, but change your point of view as you're going through it. And this is just like a little bit of an example. This is how you can use these tools to get over your point of view, which then can help your dog to get over whatever it is that got him or her into that place and really start to change it. And it's not going to change in one day, most likely, although it could. I have seen dogs that had mild dog issues that really got over it within a day and never had them again. But I've also seen cases where it took a little bit longer. Just know that you can change it. Well, and you can ask the dog, will you change it? That's actually probably a question you may want to ask your animal before you want to tackle anything that's going on behaviorally. Will you change this? It's not working for me. Will you change this? And see what energy comes up.
Different perspective, right?
Exactly.
We always impose on them. We never ask them to be involved in it.
Yeah, and they often will actually have a point of view about it. I have met dogs that are like, oh, this is a problem? I didn't know this was a problem. Oh, yeah, I could change that. So how often do we actually assume that our animals are aware of the problems that we're having with them?
For sure.
And what if they actually aren't aware of that at all? They may not ever assume that there's a problem. Most likely, they will actually assume everything is fine, and what's coming from the outside is the problem. And that's often something, too. We're not often aware that our dogs are always looking at what's going on out here rather than like, oh, it's my fault. Our dogs don't function from that point of view most of the time. It's usually us, usually we think it's our fault. Exactly. They don't usually have that point of view. Alex, did you manage to get your sound by now? Oh, still sign language over there. Okay. Too bad. Too bad.
And she's got a pod and everything. Dang it.
I know. Well, Tammy, you had a bit of sound problems. What did you do to change it? Maybe you can give her a hint.
Go to settings. And I've got the wrong one up. I can't see it anymore, Suzy. Sorry. It was
okay.
A setting option.
It was something in the settings option? Okay, yeah. Well, maybe, Sarah, you can play with that. I mean, Sarah, sorry. Maybe, Alex, you can play with that. There is On the left-hand side, I think, is where you can have all the different settings. Or on the top right, there's a little wheel there. Wherever it is, in the beginning, I think there's a toolbox. Oh, on the left-hand side on the bottom, there's a little toolbox. When you click on that, a whole nother thing comes up. And then on the right-hand side now is that little wheel with the settings. This may be more than any of our Google Hangouts view ever want to know, but hey, it would be a great contribution to have Alex here too. So, did this sort of little example, did that bring up anything for you guys? Is there anything you want to add to this, or anything you want to ask about, you guys?
I have Sarah. Let's see. Okay, so it was kind of hello. The barn where I work, there's a dog that. Okay, my question is, I don't come in with a story, and I meet these animals, and maybe it's a dog or a horse or whatever, and then because of the behavior that the animal's showing me, I kind of go, oh, it looks like this dog was abused, or it looks like this, and then, like, what can do I have to clear all
Yeah, so what do you do with the abuse? That's a great question, like when you are perceiving that an animal has been abused. And, you know, this is stuff that is going on, unfortunately, all over the planet. And people do abuse animals, sometimes quite severely. And yes, those animals do come with baggage because they don't necessarily on their own will let go of that when they have made a really had a bad experience with a person or with another animal. They often really get stuck in that. And the stuckness sometimes can occur also depending on what the situation is that was basically around when the thing occurred. Sometimes when people are involved in a situation that could be a little bit dramatic, it often is made way more dramatic than maybe the animal would have perceived it. And so that can also get an animal stuck in a situation when the people are making it more drama than it maybe is. But that's beside the point. There are animals that just got beaten or you know, had done things to them that made them very shy and very afraid of people. And so what you can do to actually change that is literally asking this animal questions and then pock and potting the animal to actually create a different reality. So you could ask us a question like, okay, so everything you have decided about no longer trusting people, will you now destroy and uncreate all that? Times a godzillion. Right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. Or you could even say something like, okay, when did you lose your trust in people? Was it this lifetime or another lifetime? Because sometimes animals come in already very shy and all very withdrawn, and it can be because in some other lifetime they had some strange abuse. And it's funny because sometimes people say, well, I don't believe in other lifetimes. That's okay. I'm not going to try to convince you of anything. It's just when we start asking these questions of these animals, oftentimes the energy that comes up sort of reads as another lifetime. And whatever that means, it could just also be a different energy. It really doesn't quite matter. And you don't have to believe or not believe in it, but if you clear it, it goes away no matter when it was created. So it sort of is irrelevant. But so in that sense, it's like you literally just start to ask the animals questions, and you say, okay, so is there something here that you need us to know about this abuse that we need to know so we can clear it? Somebody says yes to that. So sometimes it is relevant to the animal to actually have a clearing and have the person know what might have occurred during the abuse. But I find very often that it's not necessarily required to actually find out what the abuse was in order to change it. But you can ask that question of the animal. Now, this is where some of you might go, well, how do I know what my animal is saying? Literally, if you were willing to just actually trust you and trust that what you are receiving energetically is correct, then you often know way more than you're giving yourself credit for. So It's often that very first thing that pops into our head. And, you know, we all receive this energetic communication in a different way. So you might get it by words. Some people really clearly perceive words. Other people get pictures. Other people have sensations in their bodies. I have met people that might be sitting next to an animal, all of a sudden their hip hurts. And then they say, my hip hurts. And you ask, well, who does that belong to? Oh, it's the dog right next to me. Oh, what's going on with this dog's hip? Oh, okay, can we change it? So, you know, be aware that you might be receiving information in a way that you haven't actually acknowledged. Some of us just know something, you know, but how often were you actually acknowledged for what you know? Not that often, usually, you know. Especially as little kids, we're often told that we can't know something. And especially as kids, we're so much more open to the energetic communication because that's how we come in. We don't have language when we first come in. All we have is energetic communication. Yes, we have body language. We can scream bloody murder, but we don't have a way to expressing ourselves verbally for a little while. And so there are a lot of other ways that we communicate with our mother, with our father, with the people around us. And most of the time that communication actually is being received. So we all actually are very familiar with this language of energy. It's just that we really start to put more credence into the spoken word than actually listening to energy. But how often have you actually listened to somebody and you feel sort of a little wonky about what they're saying, and in your head you're thinking, they're lying to me?
Well,
Well,
Suzy,
how do you know that? Go ahead.
well, when you said I could ask the dog a question, I was like, oh, how often does it ever occur to ask our animals questions? And, and then the next thing, because I can tap into like skepticism. So, do I need to know the answer to my question? I can just ask the question and then clear the energy that comes up and say, would you like to let go of that, even though I didn't really get it clear? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So yes, if you are not sure what the quote-unquote answer was that the animal gave you, just clearing that energy and then maybe asking another question is just great. Like, there is no need sometimes to really get the answer, you know, and how often are we actually, this is another thing we were taught from very little on, that we had to get the answer. But oftentimes that doesn't really, it's not relevant so often. Like, I find that so often in the communication or changing something for the animals, the answers aren't really relevant. And that's the part where often also so many people, when they come to an animal communication class, where then, you know, a lot of people are agreeing on a certain answer, but then there are the one or two or three people in the class that got like a different answer, and then they feel wrong. But what if they weren't wrong either? What if their answer or what they were perceiving actually also just leads them down the path to some other clearing, to some other space that then can assist the animal to shift and change? So what if it was never really about the answer that we got or the awareness we had? What if it was really just about, oh wow, things are shifting and changing. Cool. How cool is that? I mean, if you were just rambling along and clearing your animal and then something changed, wouldn't that be awesome? Like, who cares what the answer might have been, right? So again, everywhere that we are looking, everywhere you're looking for the answer, everywhere that you're looking to find the answer to the problem that you're having with your dog, with your cat, with your horse, will you please now destroy and uncreate all that?
Yes.
Times a godzillion, right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds.
So the quick thing is that when we're talking about asking the question and then clearing the energy, for the people that are just, this is their first time ever hearing the clearing statement, like, can you make it simple? Like, what destroy and create all that? Or like, would you be willing to let that go? How would you?
That last bit I couldn't understand. I don't know why, but it all of a sudden it got really muffled. So just say the last bit one more time, please.
Is there a simple way to clear the energy that we can share with people on this Google Hangout that's simpler than right, wrong, good, bad, TED Talk online short stories? Like what, does it sound to you?
I personally think that that is very simple because it actually works. So, you know, and I know these are the weirdest words on the planet, probably strung together randomly, but not randomly actually. The way that these words came about was literally when Gary Douglas started Access Consciousness about 25 years ago. And he came about this clearing statement in a way that was actually by literally asking the energy how this can change. How could something change that you have been holding on forever? And so just by asking this question, this clearing statement got created. And what it actually was in the beginning was literally a 20-minute long litany of sentences of things that needed to be addressed in order to change this. And it is amazing, like all the words that went into changing the energy was a 20-minute long sentence to read. And so out of that, over the years, we now have this short phrase, which is really quite short: right and wrong, good and bad, POC and POD, all nine, shorts, boys, and beyonds. That is, I mean, to me, it's like, wow, how does it get even easier than that? And it may, at some point, get down to POC and POD. Who knows? We're not quite there yet, although Dane keeps saying POC and POD is oftentimes better than not saying anything. So use POC and POD. And you know, at this point in time, if you are not sure how to do this, you can even say in all the strange words that weird lady on the Google Hangout said the other day, and it will still address the energy. So you can do that, or you can also say POC and POD, and just know that what is really important here is that you are actually asking the energy to be shifted, and that's really what you're doing in that moment. You're shifting the energy. And then a door opens. It's really just like that. So energetically, a door opens, and something else will show up that you hadn't seen before. And the interesting part about that is it may not be instantaneous, and it may be instantaneous, but sometimes I find that, you know, I might run some clearings on an animal, and then nothing obvious changes right away, but then 2 days later, all of a sudden, something completely shifts. Why did it take 2 days? Who knows? But it still is a possibility to just create change. Every time you're using the clearing statement, you're creating change. And so it's really that simple. So I would encourage you to play with that, even if you don't ever want to come to a class. Use POC and POD, our superheroes of consciousness, and play with that energy, because it can literally make such a huge difference in your life and in your animal's life. And if you are still here and I haven't scared you away yet, then I think this might be actually something you might want to try. I'm just saying. Did that sort of shed some light on there, or was there something else you were going after here with your question?
That's great. Just have the perspective of how shortened it is now, even though it's in the word.
Cool. And, you know, in the beginning it might be a little strange, like you might think, oh my God, I'm so weird by saying this out loud, but you don't even have to say it out loud. You could say it in your head too if you feel like you are in a crowd of people that might throw sticks and stones at you or bananas. You know, you could just say it in your head too. But what I am finding is that more and more people are actually looking for tools that are actually facilitating change. And these tools really do facilitate change. I'm not saying they're the only tools on the planet by any means. There are tools that work well for people. There are tools to be found everywhere. There are, you know, churches, cults, and religions in every corner, and the tools work for certain people. It's just, hey, if you're looking for certain other tools, or if this tool is sort of appealing to you, then play with it. It doesn't exclude anything either. I have worked with people that are very religious, and I've worked with people that are don't believe in God, and it doesn't matter. If it's light, it's something you want to check out. If you're still on this Google Hangout, you probably want to check in this out. You know, if you have turned it off by now, then you probably are not you're not finding these tools appealing. But this is actually one other tool also that is very important. If at any time you're starting to feel heavy and contracted, then there's something here about it that is not right for you. Then please just look at it and go, okay, so whatever this is, this doesn't appeal to me, or maybe it doesn't apply to me, or there's a lie here, or there's something here that just doesn't work for me. If it's light, if it sort of expands your universe, if it puts a smile in your face, if it makes you tingle, that is probably then correct for you. So please use that as a tool as well, because that is actually one of the major tools that also can help you a lot in animal communication. Because when we are talking about something with our animals that has been a problem, it's oftentimes that when we get into the heaviness of it all, we should really stop and ask a question. Because when we get into the of the whole thing, that is usually a pretty good sign that we are creating more doo-doo than changing it. Because heaviness is usually the indication that we're in a story, in a lie, in something that is actually not correct, that is sort of just bogging us down and bogging the animal down. So when you are in that situation where you are constantly finding yourself getting heavier and heavier and heavier, I would say, please have a look at this, stop for a moment and go, okay, wait a minute, what am I creating here? And what else is possible? Okay, doggy, whatever your name is, what can we do here to change this? Or kitty cat, what can we do here to create a different possibility? And ask a couple of questions rather than actually going down the road of the story. So there's a lot of background noise all of a sudden. Not sure where that's coming from, but hey, Alex, do you have sound by now? We still can't hear you. That is too bad. But you can hear us, huh? Can you hear us? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe you can sign language some questions. I'm not sure if I would understand them, but I really wish we could have some communication from you, but I guess we don't. Okay, well, anybody in your part, Tammy or anybody else have a question or something else you want to talk about?
So,
Sorry, we can see questions that are typed in here that people are sending in. Would you like to hear any of these questions, Suzy?
Sure.
Okay. It says, we have a horse that has 2 foot cracks from top to bottom of each of the front feet. Any insight? He was just purchased from Brenda. Oh, and this is from the message. The question is from Brenda Smalley.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, when you have things going on in the physical body of an animal, there's a couple of things you may want to ask questions about. The first thing that I always ask when there's something physical going on with the body, I always ask first, hey body, is this something that is actually a physical issue, or is this something else creating this? And sometimes it may actually be something else, something that is not coming from like an organ issue, or that's, so if you get like, oh, it's a physical thing, you can then ask another question. Okay, has it to do with the organs, with the nutrition? Does it have to do with the environment, you know, where you're living at the moment? Have to do with anything else that has to do with the body that I haven't asked yet? Any of those questions, wherever you feel a lightness when you ask it, that's usually the one you want to have a look at. It's also sometimes helpful if you are asking the question through another person. So if you are feeling sort of unsure about this animal communication thing and you go, oh gosh, I don't know what my horse is saying to me, I don't know what my dog is saying to me, ask somebody else to help you who is not involved with your animal at all. And just say to them, hey, I'm going to ask you to now be connected to my animal, and I'm going to ask you to speak for them. But I just want you to really just only say what just comes straight up, no thinking about it. And then you ask your animal. You literally say, animal, whatever your animal's name is, horsey, is this a physical issue? And then you let the person answer for the horse, yes or no. And if they go into a story, stop them. Just say, no, wait, just literally say yes or no, or be like, just there with the horse. Most of our animals don't tell very long stories. They're usually pretty succinct and easy with what they're communicating. So when somebody starts rambling on, that's usually no longer your horse talking. So just know that too. We as people often like try to explain everything. Animals don't need to explain. They just say, yep, it's that, or no, It's usually that simple and that fast. So allow that to be like that, easy. Now, so when you ask those questions, if you get like it's not a physical thing, for example, it may be coming from something else, you can then ask your animal, are you trying to heal somebody else or something else? Are you connected to the earth? Are you trying to heal the earth that you're standing on? Are you trying to take this out of another horse? Is there maybe another horse that is about to founder and your horse is trying to change that? So there could be so many different things that can create something that looks like a physical dis-ease, and yet it may not be coming from anything physical at all. It may be coming from something.
Is that how he
Say that-
changed over? Is that how he got to Brenda? Is that he had a cracked foot and the owner no longer wanted him?
Oops.
So, can you make that more so it's clear for everybody? Like that this is how the horse, well, you did it already.
Say that one more time. I'm having a really hard time hearing you for some reason. Let me see if it helps to put both plugs in. Go ahead.
So maybe if you're saying, Tammy, that if the horse wanted to find Brenda, he may have had to make a physical condition so he wasn't good enough for the previous owner.
That is very possible, and not to be underestimated. When our animals are done with us, they come up with all kinds of cute ways to actually move on. And and that's actually one thing also that is very interesting to me. When I used to volunteer in the shelter and I would take out dogs and walk them all the time, I would always ask them about the shelter. And the funny thing was that most dogs actually didn't mind being in a shelter. They didn't care. It wasn't hard on them. They actually enjoyed it. Most of them created the situation, so they got out of the conditions they were in. So I had to really start looking at my whole idea of what shelters are and how I see them, how it's a wrongness to give up an animal, because sometimes the animals are actually done with us and they're no longer really interested in living with us. It's almost like they're putting up the divorce, they're leaving. But we would never, we don't acknowledge that. We think we're really bad when we give up an animal. We think we are like the worst thing on the planet if we are giving up an animal. And the shelter system supports that point of view. We are being shunned if we are turning in an animal, or we are being very, very much checked out when we adopt an animal. It's almost like sometimes I have talked to people that have tried to adopt animals from certain shelters, and it's like they can't get an animal from a shelter. It's like, wow, okay. So, there's a lot of points of views about this whole system of animals and the ownership of animals that is very, very interesting and curious. So what if we could actually change our points of view about that? So everything you all have created about ownership and what that means, will you please destroy and uncreate all that?
Yes.
Times a godzillion, right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all 9 shorts, boys and beyonds. So yeah, if an animal is done with you, they can very well create a physical issue to get out of the situation, a behavioral issue to get out of the situation. You know, they may just be pushing your buttons until you actually finally say, "Oh, do you still want to live with me? Hmm. Oh, it feels like maybe." Or you know, sometimes when the neighbor always says, "Oh my God, I wish I could have your dog," and you're sort of like over your dog, but you don't want to admit it. That might be a sign that maybe it's time to move the dog to the neighbor's house, you know.
Suzy, can you hear me okay? This is Sarah.
Hi.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we have a question here, and also a comment from Teresa. She says, "Thank you, Suzy. You are amazing. Rimby, Alberta loves you." And
Thank you.
Kevin has a question. He says, "Suzy, have you ever experienced an animal lying to you?"
That's a great question. And I actually have to say yes to that. And it's not, it is not actually the same way that we would lie to each other or to ourselves. You know, we mostly actually lie to ourselves. I don't know if you've noticed that, but we try to always be honest with everyone around us, but we often lie to ourselves the most. And animals don't actually lie in the same way that we do, but what I would say is they withhold the truth sometimes because they look at it as if there is a consequence when they actually would really give us the information that we're looking for. Um, and so they might have that sense of protecting another animal or even protecting their person or something in that realm where I have seen animals literally not really just coming out with what was really going on for them. And so but you perceive that just the same way you would with a person. You know, you can perceive that because it sort of feels weird. And you go, what is going on here? And so then you can start to ask some more questions about that and be like, okay, wait a minute, what else do I need to say here, or how can I create a space that this animal feels like they can actually just come out with whatever it is that they would like to communicate. And sometimes animals also can be quite shut down. If you have an animal that has never been listened to but always been asked to work hard or always been asked to just do whatever it was that the owner wanted without ever being asked a question, sometimes you can have animals that are quite shut down. And I see that more in horses than dogs and other animals because horses are often also projected at that they are dangerous and that they have to be calm, cool, and collected, and that if they're acting up in any way that they are bad. And so, you know, people often really try to shut a horse's energy level down more rather than encouraging them to just be whoever they are being. And so I have met more horses that are not really even willing to talk to us because they're just like shut off. You know, it's almost like they went into some catatonic state. And so with those guys, you sometimes have to do some body work on them. You have to sort of coax them out of their shell a little bit by asking them questions and allowing them to not answer and just being there with them and having sort of that sense of space and allowance and not trying to force them into talking to you, but just by being in total allowance of where they are at in that moment, you can start to actually shift and change that as well. So I hope that sort of answered it. But in a way, I would say 99.9% of all animals will not lie to you. Actually, they will never truly lie to you, but there is that sense of like, you're not giving me the information that you actually have available. So maybe it's a little bit more like that. And thank you for that question. That is a great question. So, Tammy, do we have anyone over in your pod, or what's going on over there in Alberta?
Kayla does, I think.
Yeah.
Can you see her?
Hi.
Hi.
You can hear me, okay. So what happens if you have a horse that is
totally being herself and is like maybe perceived as too much kind of for me. And how do I kind of stop being scared of her? Yeah, and maybe work with her.
Yeah. That's a great question too, and that is often something I yeah, he has a comment about that. What do you think about that? Maybe he was saying get over yourself.
How do I get over myself? That's the question
Yeah,
I
how
need
to
to.
get over yourself. I know that this is sometimes a tricky situation, especially if you are perceiving something that you call fear and where you go into that space of not feeling safe around your horse. That can be sometimes hard to really overcome. And that is where I would really look more into the question of like, are you guys actually energetically a match? Is it working for you? You know, if it's not working for you to be around a horse like that, then maybe this particular horse is not really what you need to play with. Maybe you need to play with another horse, a horse that actually gives you that sense. You can also ask your horse, actually, hey, would you be willing to give me the sense of feeling totally safe with you? And then tell your horse exactly what that looks like. Because to your horse, that may be completely different than what it is for you. You know, if you say to your horse, make me feel safe, your horse might think like, oh yeah, I'm going to run around you. And that would make me feel safe, you know. If another horse was running around me, cantering, galloping around me, that would make me feel very safe. Like I would feel like, okay, I'm in this bubble and this horse is keeping everyone else out. But you might be frightened if standing in the middle of a horse that's running around you. So tell your horse exactly what that actually is for you. What would create that sense of safe for you? You know, exactly what does that look like? And give your horse that energy, first of all, but then also tell your horse in plain English. Just tell her exactly what that is. Hey, if you are walking like this makes me feel safe. If you stand still when I mount you, that makes me feel safe. If you do this, that makes me feel safe. Tell her what makes you feel safe. Um, don't tell her what doesn't make you feel safe. Because one of the things about talking to animals is actually that everything you're saying projects an energy, and that's why animals can actually understand us. Animals can understand us energetically. They don't speak English, they don't speak German, they don't speak Russian, but they all speak energy. And every word, everything we say has an energy that comes along with it. And so when you're saying to an animal not to do something, what they get the energy is exactly of the thing that you're trying to avoid. Like if you're telling your dog, stop barking,
So
it's not going to work.
Quiet.
So if you keep telling your horse like, I don't feel safe about this, I don't like when you're doing this, I don't like when you're doing that, you are actually always projecting the energy of that behavior at your horse. So start giving your horse the energy of what you are looking for. So
What if
that space. Oh, I just heard Alex for the first time. Yay!
You did?
Yay!
Yay! 3 microphones later.
Woohoo! Awesome. Well, that's good. But so, Kayla, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, what I was gonna ask, one more question. What if you've had the awareness that, okay, so you're not compatible and you've kind of put the horse up for sale and done that whole situation, but there's been no bites, or you have given her to somebody else and you get her back and you're like, wow, okay, this doesn't work for me.
Right. So what is it actually that she trying to communicate something with you that you haven't been willing to look at? So everything that is, will you just join on creative, please?
Yes.
Times a godzillion. Right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. So wherever you're holding on to this whole situation, or wherever you're making it significant, and wherever you're trying to still find a solution or find the answer to what this is, will you please destroy and uncreate all that?
Yes.
Times a godzillion. Right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. So have you actually allowed yourself to have ease with the situation?
For a millisecond. You watched me ride her on that video. That was about 60 seconds.
Cool. And so that actually, what did that create for you though? That moment.
That was awesome, but I haven't been able to recreate it or outcreate it. That's the word.
Okay. And so even with that situation though, so was that actually what you needed to see, or did you actually need to go further from that?
I missed the question, sorry.
Well, so everywhere you made that moment significant, and you felt like now we have it, or now I got it, or now I'm going to have this relationship, or now we're going to go forward, or now we're going to do this. Everywhere you took that moment and projected this whole story into the future with it, will you please destroy and uncreate all that?
Yeah.
Times a godzillion. Right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. So please know that, you know, whatever all this was in that moment, it was just in that moment. So now what? Now what would you like to create? With your horse or without your horse? You know? And yeah, if it's something where you feel like you keep going around and around and around, there is usually some place where either you're lying to yourself, or there's a lie in the story somewhere, and you keep going around and around. And you know, if the horse keeps coming back to you too, or nobody is buying your horse, there could be several things that could be creating that situation. One could be you guys aren't done. Even if you want it to be done, you're not done yet. Or, you know, your horse hasn't found the person yet that actually works. Or you're not willing to let go, or your horse isn't willing to let go, which usually horses, you know, but so which of those made you feel light?
The last one is the one that kind of piqued the interest, but it wasn't the horse, it was what's attached to the horse.
Okay. So everything that is, will you please destroy and create it?
Yeah.
Times a godzillion. Right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. Okay, so maybe play with that a little bit and see what that creates.
Okay.
Does that feel a little lighter in your universe?
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so any other questions over there?
No, it was answered, so I'm trying to.
Okay, cool. And I know it's very funny because I think Alex actually, or somebody is having me a little bit later, which is very funny to me. I hear myself twice.
Sorry, it's me.
It's very funny. That's okay. It's just funny. So, do you guys have any questions over there in your part, or anything you would like to share, or?
Suzy, can you speak to nail cutting for dogs?
Uh-huh. Like, how do I get them over not wanting to have their nails cut, or which part of the nail cutting?
Yeah, it's pretty traumatic.
Okay, for some dogs.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, yeah. So that's actually also a great question. And, you know, a lot of times, basically, you know, we all pretty much know why a lot of dogs don't like their nails cut. It's because usually they got their quick cut at some point or another. And it's quite painful when that occurs. And so, you know, a lot of dogs go like, I'm not having that again. And again, what I have found with that too is that it's often also our reaction that makes it way worse for the dog and makes it way worse for the dog to let go of it. So for example, and this is jumping ahead now, if you are cutting your dog's nails and you do cut the quick at any point in time, make it at the least trauma you can possibly muster up. I know it's a bit traumatic when the blood comes out and everything, but please, 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 just make sure you have the tools available that you require when you're cutting your dog's nails. You want to have Quick Stop there. Quick Stop is this powder that it does what it says. It stops the quick from bleeding. So put the powder on there with the least amount of drama that you can muster up, and just hold your dog's paw for a moment and run this energy called cellular memory, point of creation turn. Right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all 9 shorts, boys and beyonds. And that will change that situation quite fast. If you are going into the drama of it all, you are creating more of a story for your dog not to ever want their nails cut again. And so after you cut into the quick and you have put the Quick Stop on and run this little process there for a while, I would actually go back and cut another nail just to make sure that we're not creating anything that then is being held on to for the future. So this is just jumping ahead a little bit. If you have a dog that just doesn't even like their paws touched or their nails touched, this is something you can change very, very easily with these tools. So the way you start it is by basically just briefly touching your dog's paw, literally just like that, and saying, and if your dog just pulls back the paw, say, everything that creates that, destroy and uncreate it. Times a godzillion. Right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all 9 shorts, boys and beyonds. All the decisions you have made about having your paws touched, destroy and uncreate all that. Times a godzillion. Right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all 9 shorts, boys and beyonds. What have you decided about me touching your paws? Everything that is, will you destroy and uncreate all that? Times a godzillion. Right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all 9 shorts, boys and beyonds. Then you touch the paw again. Now this time your dog maybe only will do that. You say, hey, everything that creates that, will you destroy and uncreate it? Times a godzillion. Right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all 9 shorts, boys and beyonds. All the decisions you have about nail clipping, you can say that again. Will you destroy and uncreate all that, please? Times a godzillion. Right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all 9 shorts, boys and beyonds. Now you may be going again, and your dog this time may be going like this. The energy has already shifted. Now you start introducing some positive reinforcement at that moment. So when you touch, you may either use a clicker or whatever training method you're used to, whatever you work with that's fun for you and this particular dog. Some dogs love clicker training, others don't. But use the tools that work for this particular dog. See what it is. Now at this point, when you touch the paw right away and the dog doesn't pull quickly right away, just say good or whatever you want to do, click and treat. Now you might want to end the session there. So the next day you may want to just grab the whole paw and you might start again with this. Okay, everything that creates that, so you're getting my drift. So start to run those clearings on a daily basis, and literally within a week you're going to be cutting your dog's nails. I can almost promise you that.
Awesome.
Almost.
I did learn something, is that I have 3 dogs, and so like the other day the dog that is usually good about it was like really stressed out. That's because she was last. I did an assembly line, so the stress gathered. So
Well,
I did learn that.
And also, it's like, what if it wasn't just the stress that gathered, but be aware these animals are energetically very much interwoven with each other. So if one animal has a point of view about something, the other ones are always looking at, what am I missing? What am I missing? What am I missing? Why is this animal so stressed about this situation? There must be something I am missing over here. And so that's why often dogs and animals will start to actually vibrate in the same energetic level with each other. They can have influences of calming each other down, but they can also have an influence of exciting each other. And because they are always trying to sort of match each other in a certain way. And so when you started with the other 2, the third one was going, what am I missing about this?
Yeah.
You know? And so all of a sudden it was like, whoa, there must be something I'm missing. I'm supposed to be doing all this weird stuff, you know, but the dog may not even really know why, but then it's duplicating the other dog's behaviors.
That's
So
valuable.
again, so you can change your other dog's behaviors by actually showing off your dog that gets the nails cut without any trouble too. So changing that and actually starting them to duplicate that energy and asking them to duplicate this energy. Hey, you guys, can you copy and duplicate Fluffy's energy about nail clipping, please? And
Yes.
everything that doesn't allow you to perceive, know, be, and receive that with ease, will you destroy and uncreate it, please?
Yeah.
Times a
Yes.
godzillion, right and bad, pot and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. And that actually goes with, Charlie is now getting officially bored about this Google Hangout, so I'm sorry. Charlie, you are being acknowledged for being bored now, yes. So, I know, but it's going to go a little longer, so whatever you need to do to entertain yourself, please go ahead. So, yes, so, you know, so again, you know, this also goes for if you have a dog that has, you know, doggy issues with other dogs. Like we started out this Google Hangout with talking a bit about dog aggression. You know, if you have a dog that your dog knows, you can ask your dog also, can you please duplicate such and so's energy about how to be around other dogs? Make it very specific, like really ask your dog to duplicate that energy from the other dog. You don't want to just ask your animals to duplicate the other dog because they are not the other dog. So you don't want to create that the request for them to duplicate this other dog in its entirety, but you can ask for them to duplicate the energy about a particular topic that actually works well with this other animal. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So you can use that also to your advantage, and please do, because that can also work to your advantage. So
I like that a lot.
cool.
Maybe I
Awesome.
can do.
Hi.
I'd like to duplicate. Sorry. Hi, this is Sarah. We do have a question, a bird question. Okay, from Mickey. Susie says, no, sorry, because Susie, question for you. I have a little bird and we're great buddies, but I'm also asking him whether he wants a birdie companion, and I keep getting different answers or very ambiguous answers. Any way to be clear about what he wants?
So what does he desire? I wonder. And also, sometimes it may even be that he actually doesn't have a point of view. So how I would really start this whole conversation also is by looking at your point of view about bringing in a companion and what your thoughts are about that. Oftentimes when we are trying to add a companion to our already existing pet that we have in our household, it's because we feel guilty about something, you know. So the question I would first ask myself is, am I guilty for, you know, leaving my bird alone, or am I feeling guilty because I go to work and I think my animal is sad because I'm not home, or my animal feels alone or abandoned, or any of those things? I would literally go, everything that creates that in me, I now pock and pot it. Times a godzillion. Right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. Because often when we ask the question if our animals would like to have a companion, we have already decided that it would be better for them to have one, or we already have an idea of why we're even asking, or, you know, sometimes it's also just like, hey, I'd like to have another bird in my life on top of the one that I already have, and that's a different energy too. And so it always depends a little bit on which energy you're coming from when you're asking this question. So first clear yourself of any kind of preconceived ideas, or even acknowledge if you are having a concern or a desire. If you desire to have another animal, another bird, then acknowledge it and say, hey birdie, you know what? I actually would love to have another bird. Does that work for you? And you might get a different answer. He might say, yeah, that works for me. Or he might say, nah, that doesn't work for me. So you know, and that might actually be clearer then, because then you're actually also very clear about what you desire. You know, don't you sometimes, like when people say to you, do you want to go to the movies, and you know they don't want to go, but they're asking you to choose for them? It's like, oh, please, just tell me whether or not you want to go to the movies with me. You know what I mean? So if you are the one that actually would love to have another bird, just say to your bird, I would love another bird. Would that work for you? And if he says yes, then you can even negotiate further. Hey, would you like a female or a male, or does it matter to you? Or you could say, I would love a female bird. And he might say, oh, that works for me too, you know. So check in and see what the question is that you really have. That, you know, sometimes it's funny because you can hear people, you know, telling things, and you just want to say, so what is it really that you want to ask for? What is it really you want to say right now? And I feel like often our animals are like that. What is it really you would like to say to me right now? Can you just flat out say it? Like, don't package it up. Just ask. And then it becomes more authentic in a way, like once we acknowledge why we are asking them a certain question. And by the way, thank you so much for even asking the question. I know so many people that just choose for their animals to have a companion, and then it doesn't work out. I mean, I've even had it with people that had a fish and then added another fish in the tank, and it was a disaster. You can even ask your fish, like, hey, do you wish to have another fish in this tank with you? And the fish might go, hell no. You know, I really, I'm so grateful to be here all by myself. Like, no. You know, please ask. And so thank you for asking, because most people don't ask that question and then end up with trouble later. And then when you actually ask them, hey, truth, did your other animal actually desire to have a companion? It's usually a no. And they go, oh, wow, what have I done? But even in that moment then, just the acknowledgement of that, and then basically acknowledging the animal that was there first by saying, hey, I'm really sorry. This was obviously not what you desired, and how can we make this work now? And can we make this work now? Can we change all this? Is it possible for you guys now to get along, or what is required here for this to be different? And please know, you can also negotiate with animals. You don't always have to tell them, do what they wish either. When I separated from my husband, my cats both wanted to come with me, but they didn't like each other. And so their point of view was like, well, I'm coming, but we can leave the other one. And the other one said, well, I'm coming, but we could leave the other one. And so I was like, great, you know, this is obviously not working. So I said to them, look, you're both coming, and you're just going to have to work it out, you know. I don't care how you work it out, but you're going to have to work it out so that we're having peace in the house. However this works for you guys, like, you figure it out. And they did. So you can also make a demand within reason. You know, you can make a demand. And I knew those two cats could live with each other without having to be buddies in the house that I was moving to. So I knew that was a possibility. But so if it is a reasonable request that you have, you can also make a request like that. Hey, guys, okay, you both come in, or this is going to work out, make it work out. So please don't always feel like, oh, animal communication means that whenever I hear what my animal wants, I now have to do it all. Everywhere you have decided that is the case, will you please destroy and uncreate all that?
Yes.
Times a godzillion. Right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. The partnership, yeah.
Okay, so could you just speak a little bit to like how we could help horses, say, that are maybe foundering or have foundered, or like navicular disease, where that comes in, and stuff like that, and maybe into injuries a little bit too, if that strikes your mood.
Yeah. Well, anytime, like I said before, anytime you're having some physical stuff going on, oftentimes just acknowledging what is beyond the just physical manifestation of whatever it is is very helpful, because what we're often not acknowledging with our animals is that they are often either taking dis-ease out of others, and that could be people, that could be other animals, that could be the earth, or that they are actually trying to give us information about a situation that needs to be changed. And so we often so much narrow into the physical ailments as something we need to fix, rather than actually asking questions about, what is this? What do I do with this? Can I change it? And how do I change it? So really starting with the simple question of, what is this? And not just looking at the disease of foundering or whatever the diagnosis is, but really like, what is this energy that is present here? What is going on here? Does it have to do with the horse? If you have several horses on the same land that are all having the same physical ailments, what is this? Is the earth trying to give some information about what's going on there in this particular patch of land? Or is there something that the horses are doing together to change something there energetically? What is this? And even if you don't get a cognitive answer to that, say, okay, everything that is, let's destroy and uncreate it all. Times a gazillion. Right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. And you may actually ask a question like that and not get anything at all for a while, and all of a sudden you become aware of something. All of a sudden you might become aware of, oh, look, there's this really strange herb growing here that I haven't seen anywhere else. What is that? You might start to notice things that you didn't notice before. When you start to ask questions, when you're starting to actually be willing to see something different, you're opening the door to more awareness, and you're opening the door to things that you haven't actually looked at before or even considered before as a possibility to change and shift something for this whole situation.
So just by asking that, like, there's no kind of process that you would maybe recommend or something to help with physical, because I have an older horse, right, and he's just physically just sore in the joints, right, and it's like, is there something besides asking that question, some kind of process you can run to help with that? Because it seems like uncomfortable, right? And maybe I'm assuming for the horse that it's uncomfortable, but...
Yeah, and absolutely, you are correct. There are lots of body processes that we can run on these horses. I mean, Access Consciousness probably has, like, I'm not even sure, 40, 50 different body processes that are available to run on bodies, and a lot of those processes work on animals as well. Now, I cannot even list them all right now because it would be going way beyond what we're doing here today. Just know that, yes, absolutely. Actually, let me give you one process that you all can run on your animals that is really a fabulous process, and it is called MTVSS and all the rest. And you just put your hands on your animal's body and you just say those words, MTVSS and all the rest, right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyond. And that is one of the body processes in Access Consciousness that really can create a lot of change for so many different things that might be going on for your animal. Now, whenever you're putting your hands on an animal and you're starting to run a process and that animal leaves right away, either it is not the process that that body requires at that moment, or the intensity of change could be so much that the animal is like, whoa, that was enough, like 2-3 seconds was enough. So play with it again. If the animal holds a little bit longer, then possibly that was the correct process, but it just this time the animal allowed it to run a little bit more. It can bring up some sensations of pains that the animal hasn't had for a while, so there could be reactions like, whoa, all of a sudden, like a quick movement. Just be aware and ask questions like, hey, is this the process your body actually would like to receive? If you get a yes, then maybe run it from a distance. I literally ran it on cats before. I was 3 feet away from them. That's the only way they could stand it. Horses oftentimes may receive a process for 10, 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. You know, dogs might receive a process for 5 minutes and had enough. Every animal is different. Every animal kind is different. So please, you know, play with this process. Play with it. I've seen amazing things change with this process. I had a lady who changed her dog's hip dysplasia completely with the process. She ran it on him for like 3 months every day, changed it completely to a degree where the vet said, "Oh, we must have made a mistake with the X-rays. Your dog doesn't have hip dysplasia." So just know you can create a difference. You can create a shift. And again, you know, this is not replacing any kind of medical care by the veterinary, by the vets, but you can support for sure with this kind of work. You can support anything else that might be going on medically, and you can just do it also as a preventative way to keep your animal's body happy and healthy and well. So this is one of the processes that is just an amazing contribution to animals all over. So play with it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Suzy?
Yes.
When you started talking about there's 45, 50 body processes, I got all excited, like, would you come and teach us body processes hands-on with our animals, or horses, or dogs?
Absolutely. And you know, for the hands-on body work, and if this tickles somebody, if you're going like, wow, hands-on body work on animals sounds like a lot of fun, that is where I teach these classes called Energetic Synthesis of Structural Embodiment. They're done on horses. We play with horses literally for days, putting our hands on them, playing with the energy, running processes, doing all sorts of things to facilitate change in their bodies. And if you're not interested in animals at all, there is actually the Access Body class, which is a 3-day class where you and other people receive body processes for 3 whole days. I mean, really? All of our bodies are like, yes, please, I'll have some of that. And if you want to find more out about where those are, please go on the Access Consciousness site. So accessconsciousness.com, and then under the classes you can find body classes and just look for those. There are also a lot of body facilitators out there that can facilitate like a one body process class. And so if you see something like that in your area and you're interested, check it out. There's so many different ways to learn these processes that are just amazing. And, you know, gosh, our bodies just love them. And personally, I've experienced a lot of change on my own body from receiving the body work. I've seen animals shift dramatically from receiving the body work. So, yay on body work. And also, if you are listening here and you're still here, I want to congratulate you. Amazing. You have made it so far without running away. There is also a process called the bars, which is really the beginning of access, is the bars. This is something that is actually not applicable to animals, but it is applicable to people. Why do bars not work on animals? It's because they're actually smarter than us, and they don't require bars. Bars are 32 points on your head that are being touched by a bars practitioner who actually will combine certain points that they're holding on your head, which then starts to erase basically everything that you have going on at that moment that is limiting you. So some people perceive the bars as a very relaxing time, like an hour of total relaxation where they're just completely sort of out and just letting their body go and sleep in this very deep and relaxing sleep. Other people walk away from the bars and really notice that a lot of things in their lives have changed. For example, things that used to drive them crazy, all of a sudden they have allowance for. So the bars can really create a huge shift for you. So if you've never experienced the bars, please also on accessconsciousness.com you can find bars and a lot of bars classes and bars facilitators around the world. We're now in 32 different countries. Amazing. So even if you
131.
say what?
131 different countries?
Oh, 131 different countries. Sorry, I got that all confused. 131 different countries. It's amazing. I mean, it's sort of mind-boggling if you look at a map and you see all the dots where people are bars facilitators around the world. It is really quite amazing. So if you've never experienced the bars for you, please, I highly, highly recommend that you give that a try. It is really an amazing tool to have in your toolbox. So that's just a little side note on body work and access consciousness. Thank you for bringing that up, by the way. So do we have any more questions or any other?
Yeah, we do. We do. We got a couple more. Here's one from Kevin. Suzy, since I know you can communicate to animals over distance, my fiance and I are combining dog families. So far, so good. Do you pick up any strife or issues that we should be aware of?
You guys are very cute. Thank you for asking the question. This is actually a great question because, again, so often, you know, when we are combining families like that and we're bringing dogs and cats and animals together, it can often, when it's not going smoothly, it can often create a big rift between people, you know. And so one of the things that I would highly recommend is that you never go into that space of your dog, my dog, but always go into like, hey, let's work on this together. What can we do here together to change it if something comes up? How can we combine our efforts here to actually work together as the family that we have now chosen to be here together, rather than going, well, your dog just shit in the kitchen. Are you going to clean that up? You know, so if you could actually come from the allowance of that rather than the idea of you know, the separation of that, then you are going to actually do quite well with all this. And if you do get that there might be a little bit of some energy that may not be working well, or you are perceiving something that's not like totally smooth yet, what I would highly recommend with especially dogs is to take them on an activity together. So a really long walk, I recommend an hour plus. You know, if you can do an hour and a half, 2 hours of walking. And when I say walking, I actually mean it, like not standing around and letting them sniff or going to the dog park. I'm talking about taking a walk together, like where you are really going together as a family, because that creates that energy of migrating together, which to dogs is just heaven. You know, when dogs migrate together, they're just having a ball. So if you can facilitate that energy together, you are going to have more peace in your family with the dogs. And so that would be something that I would sort of throw in there as a little challenge for you, or an idea for you, if you're perceiving that there might be something going on. So, and thank you for the question. I love it. And if there's something more specific, then type it in real quick and we'll get to it. So do we have another question?
There is another question. Can I just ask you a question about, is that how you were able to walk like 20 dogs off leash? I read that somewhere, that you were like dog walking and you could, that's the principle? But yeah, because I was like, how is she doing that?
Well, actually, to be honest, I learned all of that from the dogs. It wasn't me just grabbing 20 random dogs and starting to walk them. It was literally building a pack of dogs, and then at that point, yes, there were a lot of dogs that would just come in sometimes for just one day. But once you really start to build this energy of like, hey, let's do this together, and the animals are actually quite willing to create that with you, then you can gradually add more and more and more, and it becomes easier and easier because the animals are actually willing to assist you. So if you create the energy of, even if you are the pack leader, and oftentimes, we have all these notions about what it means to be a leader, and actually all the notions you have about what leadership is to you, will you please destroy and uncreate all that?
Yeah.
Times a godzillion, right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. Because leadership for a lot of us has so many weird energies attached to it that have nothing to do with leadership out in the animal world. And really the greatest exercise for that I would recommend is that you ask yourself first, what does leadership mean to me? And pock and pot everything that comes up for you over and over and over. And what does it mean for me to be a leader? And also, what am I avoiding with not being the leader of my own pack? You can ask all those questions and pock and pot any energies that come up. And again, you don't have to have an answer. You just want to sort of pock and pot the energy that comes up. And then ask your animal, what does leadership mean to you? Can you actually give me the energy of what leadership means to you? What it is to be the leader of the pack? What is the energy that I have to be your leader? And your animal will actually give you that energy. And it's like giving me goosebumps right now, because there is an energy there that leadership is that is way different from what it is that we have decided about leadership. And so if you are willing to be that energy with your animals, they actually start to relax around you, because then they don't have to be the one that always takes that role of like being that in the family. And to tell you one thing, most animals are quite overwhelmed by the role of being the leader of our pack, our people pack. And they would much rather you take on that role. But especially, for example, in a dog's world, they don't function without leadership. They by default have to have a leader. So if you're not the one, they're gonna have to make it up. Even if it's the little chihuahua, they are going to then have to take it on. And I mean, you've all seen some of these chihuahuas that are taking on leadership. It's often not a pretty sight. So, you can relax those dogs by taking on that energy. And so, the more that you're willing to be that, and that's really the beauty of asking these animals for assistance, asking them for their way of being with all that. They can really also give you a different point of view, a different way of just functioning in the world that is quite amazing. So I highly recommend it. So everything that brought up in you, everywhere you're going, I can't, I won't. Will you destroy and uncreate all that, please?
Yes.
Times a godzillion, right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Tanya wrote in, she said, of course my dog just growled on the leadership questions. And Penny asked a question before that, you might have just answered it. She said, I've been able to train my dog to do amazing things, but not to walk calmly on the leash. She gets so excited and she pulls on the walk until I let her off leash. How can I change this?
Mm-hmm. And yes, and part of it is that energy of being more of the leader. Will change that immediately. I have literally seen a lady in one of my dog classes who had a Great Dane. That is quite a big dog. And that dog was not walking on a leash with her. I mean, that dog, wherever the dog wanted to go, she pretty much was going, because that dog is very strong and was just pulling her. So I said to her, what energy would you have to be to actually control your dog? And funny enough, she said, I would have to be Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I said, all right, cool. So can you pull the energy in that, whatever that is that means to you, being Arnold Schwarzenegger? Can you pull in that energy? Now, I tell you this, she was walking with her dog in a circle at the time, in this little arena. And I mean, she wasn't actually walking in a circle because she was pretty much walking wherever the dog was going. But she was walking as we were doing this, and I was asking her out loud, like, hey, what energy would you have to be in? She said Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I said, will you pull that energy in? The second she pulled that energy in, the dog whipped his head around and looked at her and started walking next to her. I was like, excuse me? I was shocked. I had no idea that it could be that easy. It was literally just her being a different energy, and the dog was like, hello, I'm coming with you. You know, so everywhere that we have not been willing to actually be the energy that allows our dogs to perceive us as the leader of the pack, can we now please destroy and uncreate all that?
Yes.
Times a godzillion. Right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all 9 shorts, boys and beyonds. And training is a wonderful thing. Training, I love training. It's a great tool to have. And if you're training from that space of also leadership, how much more could you create with your training? And how much more fun could you have too? So also everywhere you guys have decided that leadership means you have to be mean now and you have to, like, you know, get out your RoboCop outfit and you have to be all that. Will you just try and uncreate all that, please?
Yes.
Times a godzillion. Right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all 9 shorts, boys and beyonds. You don't have to be Arnold Schwarzenegger. That was just an energy that she was using as creating that for herself. So, but what is that for you? You know, what energy is that for you that would actually create that sense of being the leader? And again, please destroy and uncreate all the points of views you have about what leadership means to you, because we all have insane points of views about that. Please do that at least 10, 15, 20 times, destroying and uncreating your points of views on leadership. It will really, really change the way you're looking at this. Because for a lot of us, leadership also means like a lot of work. I don't want to come home from work and then be the leader of my pack. I just want to go home and put my feet on the you know, ottoman and watch TV. But can you do all that and still be the leader? I wonder. I wonder. So again, all the ideas we have about a lot of these things may not really be what they are. So they may be all the insane points of views we've been buying from everyone around us. So that's really where the clearings can help you so much, actually creating a different reality for you and your animals, something that hasn't existed here on the planet. So I really hope that a lot of you are willing to actually look at some of these things now maybe in a slightly different way and play with your animals in a different way and start to perceive that there is actually something that we can all create together, and that might actually change this world a little bit. But we probably don't want that, because the world is perfect, right? Thank you for that timely bark. All right. Any other questions?
There's a couple of comments here. Can I read them for you?
Of course.
Sabine says, Suzy, you are awesome. Thank you for this great hangout. Our dogs are passed out in their beds, and the cat is sitting here while we are running bars. Juna and Sabine. And Tanya
Thank you, guys.
agreeing with Sabine. And I'm blown away. Like, you've given us so much, the body processes that you gave us on this call, the clearing, all the like specific stuff. So I'm going to watch this again and again.
We're excited for you to be here.
Oh yeah. Here in Arizona. Here we are.
Yay.
Camera.
Yes. Absolutely. Thank you. I'm so excited to come to Arizona. If this is at all something you felt like, wow, you know, what else is there, what else is possible, maybe you want to come and check out the class. And even if you don't, please start asking questions with your animals. Please start using the clearing statement to change things that aren't working for you and your animals. And please just like look at a different possibility that is available. So I've really had a lot of fun. I hope you guys had fun too, and so grateful for all of you being here and asking questions and contributing from all over the place. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Suzy. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Suzy.
Bye.
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 Bye.